Welcome to Adapt It, the podcast where we explore adaptations of various forms. I'm today's host, Tom, and with me is...
Matt.
Today we'll be discussing Twelfth Night, directed by Trevor Nunn from 1996, and She's the Man, which was directed by someone and was released in some year. Who knows? I didn't look it up.
Don't. They can IMDb it. Just let it go.
Yes, you can IMDb it at home. I'm not. I'm not.
Just don't.
Yeah. So we'll start off today, some Shakespeare facts. I want to start by talking about Shakespeare and a concept that seems to be very important, not only in this play, but in the next two plays we're doing, in Taming of the Shrew and As You Like It. And that's this concept known as the humors. And the humors were the consequence of what was believed to be a mixture of the essential bodily fluids in people's bodies, and those fluids would be in or out of balance. And if they were balanced, you were mentally healthy, i.e. not insane. If they were out of balance, you were insane. And this dates way back before the Renaissance. This goes back to...
This is Aristotle.
It goes back
This is
to
actually
Aristotle.
Hippocrates. It's probably Hippocrates.
It's Hippocrates,
Yeah.
it's Aristotle. It was really in the 2nd century AD, Galen kind of nailed this down a little more specifically. And what he put out there was you had yellow bile, black bile, blood, and phlegm. And these fluids created different emotions. And if you had more of one of these fluids,
You might
you
become
would...
phlegmatic.
Yes, yeah.
Or
Phlegm would...
bilious.
Bilious, or black bile would make you melancholy.
Ah.
So if you were like depressed, that meant you had too much black bile. And certain foods can heal that. Certain relationships can improve upon that. And what is happening in Shakespeare's plays seems to be the undercurrent that we tend to miss sometimes, mostly because his characters are rich enough that we actually don't need this anymore. But there is this sort of belief in the humors that seems to be going on there. In Shakespeare's day, there's the cleric Thomas Walkington, who had articulated this belief yet again, full with illustrations, connecting it to specific organs and specific types of food you can eat to deal with these problems. You know, if you were being particularly chloric, you could have some salt and fix that, I suppose. That was the idea.
I mean, kind of laugh, but I mean, people do that kind of stuff today too.
Oh,
It's not.
yeah,
This
yeah.
is not. I mean, this is essentially the you are what you eat and different variations of that, and like, you know, I always find it funny when people laugh at these kind of things. Like, there's always one of my favorite. This is totally. It's not totally unrelated, but it's like this is why I was saying like, don't laugh at this because people do this all the time, just in different variations. Thomas Aquinas has his whole thing where one of his questions that he goes through is like, well, what if you were born under the wrong stars? Are you responsible for your behavior if you are? And he basically says, no, it might change your disposition. Like if you're born under Mars, it might change your disposition and make you more angry, but that doesn't mean you can go be warlike. Or if you're born under Venus, that doesn't negate it. And people, I remember talking to people about it, and they're like, "Oh, this is such a weird question. Why? I mean, I get why he asked it, but this is totally unrelated to nowadays." I'm like,
It's not at all.
people still listen to astrology, but even if they didn't, people say it all the time. They'll just say like, "Oh, it's in your DNA." That's in his DNA. Well, this person, and we've just replaced the idea of inheritance with the idea of this kind of stuff. So it's like, nah, all of this stuff that people laugh at from this time period, like, yeah, we don't believe that exact truth, but variations of it are still cropping up all over
Mhm.
the place. So,
Yeah, and variations of it probably have some truth to it, especially in terms of an
well, the
abundance
idea
of a
of
certain chemical that could lead to depression doesn't seem to be unrealistic.
yeah, and the idea that that things in your body could affect your mind is absolutely accepted
True.
nowadays. Like that we have a much stronger sense of mind body meld than people did a long time ago. Not even that long ago. If you were probably 19th century, it was like, no, just get over it. You need to just fix your attitude. Like there was much more of that. We have a much more sense that what I eat and how I behave and what's in balance in my body affects my mind. we have a pretty strong sense of that. And I think you could make the argument that this is just a reflection of that in a different sense. They obviously don't have the exact medical things down, but they're still getting the general point that things that are happening to you or things and imbalances in your body affect your brain, which is actually something that got rejected for a period of time and it's resurfacing. So I guess I just say I know you're being facetious about the salt thing, but it's true. We still do it. We do it now,
Yeah,
just in different sense.
yeah, we do. I mean, you can think of alcohol as, if you're drinking too much alcohol, that can lead to certain mental conditions or
Yeah.
changes in personality, and that seems to be backed by the best science we have. Um, how this stuff kind of appears in Shakespeare and appears on the stage is that you begin to see under Walkington, that guy I mentioned before, the cleric, this idea of temperaments or personalities that were the result of these kind of humors. And so what you're seeing very often on stage is that characters are sort of marked as being having too much of a certain fluid. So people like Kate, who were chloric in The Taming of the Shrew, the problem there is, well, you need to take her out of that environment. It's too hot, and you need to drag her away from somewhere. So in Taming the Shrew, we read that and we think, well, this is a little abusive. He's being abusive. But from their kind of medical understanding of what's going on, she's the way she is because she's in the wrong place and she's out of balance. And the right relationship will balance you. And that seems to be what's happening here with Viola and Orsino as well. He's sort of out of balance. He's in this kind of warm atmosphere. It's kind of gone to his head. And he needs this person who's sort of sanguine to come in and relax him or fix him. And while we actually kind of have that today, right, we do have this idea of opposites attract and balance things out. That's part of romantic comedies. Romantic comedies are based on here's two different types of people. They're equally charismatic, but they're different and they kind of balance each other out. And that seems to start here and a little earlier with this idea of the humors and this idea of personalities balancing each other out in romantic relationships that seems to be bubbling up in Shakespeare's day. And for a lot of people in his audience, they would have noticed this and they would have applied that kind of thinking to watching the plays. And it's kind of a testament to Shakespeare that these plays work perfectly well, and you don't need to know anything about that.
Now, how is that appearing in She's the Man? Is that
Well,
reflected? Is this idea reflected in She's the Man at all?
yeah, I don't think she's
We will
very
have to discuss
phlegmatic.
that. Have
That's
to
a,
do. We will have to. Well, she's sanguine. She's sanguine.
yeah, well,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
We'll have to
Um,
discuss this.
we'll have to
In what
discuss
sense?
this, but let's get into the play. I will start by saying I think this with As You Like It are probably my favorite comedies, with Much Ado right behind. When we get to As You Like It, I guess I could determine what's my favorite, even though I don't know if that question is incredibly valuable. But what I like about this play is while Beatrice from Much Ado About Nothing is the deeper character, there's nobody in this play who is as deep and as charismatic as Beatrice from Much Ado, yet there's so many different and really interesting characters in this play. I mean, even I forgot how fun Festi is.
Yeah, he's
Like,
great. He's actually very good. Actually, Ben Kingsley gives good performances in it too. But
yeah, that was
um,
that was my favorite part of that film.
uh, well, we can get
Yeah, we'll get into
yeah.
it. Yeah, but even there, like Festi, I had kind of forgotten about him, and then when I read him again, I'm like, God, this character is really, really fun and really rich. And Sir Toby, he's a Falstaffian. He's in that vein. I mean, he's not quite as brilliant. Falstaff is very smart. He's not only a great,
Yeah, so Toby Belch is just he's
he's
just
just
drunk. He's
fun.
just funny. He's
Mhm.
just funny and witty, he's so yeah.
Yeah, and then the Malvolio plot. Malvolio is a very interesting character. Viola is lovely. She is a really lovely and interesting person, albeit a little strange. She's a little wacky. And I think what I also like about this play is it has this great diversity of characters, but I think it has the wackiness of Midsummer. It's
Yeah.
pretty nuts. I mean, this play, the subtitle of it is What You Will, Twelfth Night or What You Will, which means something along the lines of like whatever, go for it, have at it, guys. Like whatever you want to happen, it's gonna happen, and that seems to be the case here. It is. a really, really kind of like emotionally nuts play. It seems like everybody's lost their mind briefly in the period of this play. And so you have all of this real diversity of interesting and deep and complicated characters who are just going nuts for how long? 24 hours, something like that? 48 hours?
I think it's longer than that in
Is it
in
longer
the
than?
play.
Hmm.
I think it's well, I know because I think they say she's been my waiting lady for these three, or my page for these 3 months.
Okay. It's a lot longer than that.
I think it's fairly long.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
but
Um,
I would agree that I would put it this way. I guess the thing is what we see is probably about 2 days of it, but I think it's suggested that the time
it's
period
much
was a lot
longer.
longer. At a minimum, at least, because why else would the Count trust this Cesar? What is his name? What does he say his name?
Yeah,
Cesario.
Cesario. Hmm.
Cesario. Why would he trust this Cesario if it hasn't at least been a couple months with this kid? So I assume that's part of it that they're playing with. But either way, so I will actually agree with you. I had never read Twelfth Night before. I've never read it. I've never seen it. It's probably one of the. It's probably the only of like his really good ones that I had never read or seen. Of the ones that people really like, and I actually think this is better than As You Like It. I'm not a big As You Like It fan. Maybe I was just in it and I'm jaded towards it. But I really liked Twelfth Night, and for all the reasons you said. And it's actually I would say it's not it is close to Midsummer. It's actually closer, at least plot wise, to Comedy of Errors.
Yes. Yeah.
Because Comedy of Errors is twins and twins separated and then getting back together. And this is like a blending of the twins separated from Comedy of Errors with the lovers not knowing who's loving whom from Midsummer and the cross dressing from As You Like It. It's all comes together in a really good, and it's not to just be like, he was running out of stuff, he's throwing the kitchen sink at it. That's Cymbeline. This is like I think actually like it's good. It's just good. And it's funny. There's no like your point. I always like Midsummer, but I guess I have to overlook its major flaws, which is other than the Beatrice Benedict plot, the rest of it is terrible.
Mhm.
Like no
Oh,
one cares
Much
about.
Ado, you mean?
Sorry, what did I say?
You said Overlook Midsummer.
Oh,
You mean
Midsummer.
Much
Yeah,
Ado?
sorry. Much Ado. Other than the Beatrice Benedict plot, the rest of that play is terrible. Like I don't care at all about Hero, and none of that is really all that interesting. It's actually kind of boring. But the Beatrice Benedict plot is so good that I really like it. But you're right. Twelfth Night is just there's nothing in it that feels like this is just kind of dull. There's this one feels like wow, all the characters are good, all the plot lines are good. The main plot line's good. The comic one is good. Festi's much better than Touchstone, like way better than Touchstone, I think. I just think there's a lot more interest going on here, and even Toby Bell. Even if you want to go, well, Toby Belch is actually closer to Touchstone and Phoebe. It's Toby and Mariah, are closer to them. Even then, I would say, well, then Touchstone's better than or Toby Belch is better than Touchstone. However you want to look at the parallels here, the characters are just better, I think, than overall and As You Like It, and I think it's just much funnier. I really enjoyed it. I very much enjoyed Twelfth Night the play.
Yeah. Yeah. This is, I love this play. And
Yeah,
yeah,
I would say
it's
it's now my. I think this is my favorite comedy now.
okay. Yeah, I think it's close. Maybe when we go back to As You Like It, it'll be really fun to compare those. But this is, for what it's worth, this is either my favorite or second favorite.
Hey,
It's up there
maybe that's another title for this play. For what it's worth, we
for
could
what
change
it's worth.
As You Like It, or What You Will, or For
Or
What
for
It's
what it's
Worth,
worth.
or for. I think something Shakespeare had this tendency for some of these plays just to be like, I'm just gonna come up with these meh titles, like all's well that ends well,
Yeah. Well, Much Ado About
as
Nothing.
good as it gets.
Do you know
What you will,
well, do you know the
for what it's worth.
Much Ado About Nothing? You know the pun.
Yes, I know the
Yeah.
pun that's going
Mhm.
on there.
Yeah.
That nothing was a term for a vagina,
Mhm.
and so that which is funny.
Mhm.
I get the pun there. That one actually makes more sense than
Then the rest of
because of the
these.
pun.
Yeah.
The rest of these, as you like it, what you will, all's
Yeah.
well that ends well,
But
for what
Twelfth
it's
Night,
worth, as
yeah,
good as
even the
it gets. They all
title.
just feel the 12th. They all just feel so. You could switch a lot of these around, and you'd have the same thing.
Yeah, and the title, the Twelfth Night is we were talking about this off the podcast, but the title Twelfth Night doesn't come up in the play. It's kind of
They
a
have to
ref.
really stick it in there in the movie, the Trevor Nunn one.
Oh, when did they say it in the Trevor Nunn one? I don't even
The
remember.
very beginning when Festi is
Oh,
doing the over, he says
mm,
something about like I don't even remember how he gets it in there. They just
mm,
say it.
mm.
It had that hot tub time machine kind of feel to it.
I haven't seen those movies, but
There's just I haven't seen it either, but I've seen there's apparently just like one moment where they're looking and they go, it's like some kind of, and the guy just stares at the camera and goes, hot tub time machine, and
ah,
just kind of it's like and then he just stares at the camera for
mhm,
like 10 seconds, being like, we said it. So
mhm.
this has kind of had that feeling of like, we gotta say the title.
Got it.
It's like the Postman, or let's go with a more more classic example. The postman always rings twice. That
Mhm.
is nowhere in the book. That the postman always rings twice. That phrase is nowhere in the book. But in the movie, I think they were like, we can't just not
We can't
say
tell
it.
them why it's
We
called
can't, we
this.
have to tell them why it's called this. And
Mhm.
so they have the monologue at the end where he kind of goes into the whole thing at the end of the movie. So they felt like they just had to get it in there.
Mhm.
That's what it felt like in the Trevor Nunn movie. But
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a little silly. I don't even remember him saying that.
he does at the very, very beginning.
Yeah, because that's invented, right?
Oh
Strictly
yeah,
for the
none of that's
film.
in there.
That's
Yeah,
none
none
of
of
the.
that's in
I know
there.
it's not in the. I couldn't find. I thought maybe they cut it from in different places in the play, but I
I don't
couldn't
think so.
locate
It
any
didn't
of
even.
it.
It doesn't
Yeah,
sound.
it doesn't sound right.
It doesn't sound right. Like the tone doesn't sound right. The word doesn't sound right. It sounds like a modern overview. It sounds like they might as well have been like, and the bicycle has become very popular, and then like it just had that kind of feel to it,
Mm,
which I enjoyed. That this movie apparently all these movies they feel like they got to just have Shakespeare with bicycles because this one also had a thing with a bike. Like,
yeah.
why did the '90s think Shakespeare needed bikes?
I don't. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Uh, but it. But getting into the movie, I suppose. Should we jump into the movie?
Yeah, I don't. I
Yeah.
mean, unless yeah, I mean, other than really liking the play, I don't know how much more we can
Yeah.
say.
No, no. Yeah, I suppose there's always in adaptations how you treat Malvolio's humiliation. That seems to be something that varies from thing to thing. Either Malvolio comes out of that and he is like really angry as he is in the play, and everybody kind of laughs it off, and either Malvolio storms off or he kind of gets over it. It's sort of a healing thing, and he's able to enjoy the marriages or festivities at the end. Or you have Malvolio doesn't get over it, but whatever, because he's a jerk, so there you go. Or you have the like, this is the tragic thing that has happened. We have gone too far in the treatment of Malvolio, and something really sad has happened.
I mean, it's true. This movie
Yeah.
obviously goes with that last
Mhm.
option, but it is kind of sad the way they present it. But at the same time, I'm like, I don't know if that worked.
Mhm.
I don't think it worked in this particular instance because there's just a little. It doesn't have that. Has a bit of a manic feel to it rather than a
Mhm.
true attempt at pathos kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. So what they seem to do is they use Mariah as the person who is most sympathetic. She doesn't really say it, but she's the face of sympathy in
Yeah.
those scenes. And I think from her, we're supposed to get this idea that something bad has happened with Malvolio.
Yeah, I would agree. I totally agree
Mhm.
with that. And
Yeah.
the implication is they did take it too far. And clearly the locking him up thing is taking it too far. But it was also just then the locking it up thing just I mean it did feel mean and sort of weirdly out of character. Like it felt like you're just manipulating me to make me feel bad. Like I actually don't know why they're locking him up in this stable and treating him this badly. This just this feels more like something out of Richard the Third or something than it feels like out of this. It didn't feel right. It didn't. I guess they didn't earn it. I don't think they earned it. I think they wanted it, and yet they didn't earn that change. They didn't earn that transition or convince me that this transition was feasible. But they wanted me to feel the emotions, and I'm like, well, you're cheating.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think the scene can be read really funny. I'm locked in a dark shed. Huh? It's the bay windows. It's very bright in there. What do you know,
Yeah.
it can be that way. And I think part of it, I think it's probably closer, even though it isn't this thing, it's probably closer to slapstick than anything
Yeah.
else. I mean, it's probably just that zany and that over the top. And I remember reading one criticism from Harold Bloom, who said this about all these Twelfth Night adaptations he saw, is that the pace really just can't be fast enough. It's a play
Yeah.
where pace
I would
just
agree.
it needs to. It's not like Hamlet, which can take its time. And when we get to the 4 hour Hamlet, we will see someone take its time.
Is that
That's
Branagh Hamlet?
Branagh's, yeah, which I like a lot,
I
but
love Branagh's Hamlet. Yeah, it's very long.
I'm thinking about my work schedule. But the pace here, I think, just needs to be just barrel fast. It needs to be off the rails. That's the only way this thing kind of makes sense. And I think making this the sort of pseudo romance of Malvolio, the tragicomedy of Malvolio or something, requires you to kind of slow down
Yeah, and I don't
and
think it works.
indulge the melancholy. Yeah, I don't think it works. And
Because it's also, I mean, this is one of those things where you can do things with Shakespeare's text. It's when you fight the text is when you've got a problem. There's no way that this scene was meant in Shakespeare's time to elicit sympathy for Malvolio. I don't think anybody, this was the comic slapstick. Especially, I really enjoyed that. When we watched Henry V, and they kind of showed that, especially at the beginning when they're doing all the comic kind of stuff. This was the scenes to sort of get people to laugh, and whoever was the big comic actor could have his big moments, and it would be really funny, and then they would move on. There's no way you were meant to feel sympathy here. I don't think so anyway. So it feels like you have to fight the text to get this to happen, and fight. It feels like you're fighting it. It just feels false. It feels grafted.
yeah, yeah, I agree.
But that aside,
What did you think of the movie?
I mean, you can go into. I know you had other textual problems. The performances are really good. Like there's almost no one who gives a particularly weak performance. I really liked Helena Bonham Carter actually. I thought she's really good. Um, I thought Ben Kingsley is really good. I think they really hold it together. But there's just a lot of very good performances in there. I think Sir Toby Belch and the other guy are great. Duke Orsino is fine. I think Viola is fine.
Maggie Smith's son is Duke Orsino.
Oh, is that who that is? I didn't know that. Yeah, they're both fine. Like I think they give good performances and they don't mess it up for everybody else.
Mhm.
There's just there, but I think there's a lot of really strong performances all over. Even Mariah, is it Mariah or Maria? I think they were saying Mariah.
Yeah,
I
I thought they said Mariah. Let's go with Mariah.
Yeah, I'll go with Mariah, which I find it weird. But anyway, Mariah, who was Margaret in the Much Ado we saw last week,
Hmm.
she's pretty good too. Like I think, even just there's scenes when they're singing and listening to Ben Kingsley sing, and I think she kind of sadly gets the bottle and starts pouring herself a glass. Like I think there's just a lot of nice moments in it. I get it. There are some text issues. There's some problems just overall with the pacing of it, but I think the performances in general make up for a lot of flaws.
I like the performances too, and I think especially Ben Kingsley. I struggle a little bit with Helena Bonham Carter. She
Only, oh,
does
sorry,
this
go ahead.
like doe eye thing where that
Yeah.
always strikes me as a little forced. I feel like I see the wheels turning when she looks surprised. Whenever.
The only time she really did that, and it was probably her weakest scene, was the scene with Malvolio. That's
Mhm,
when she's really doing it and doing like the laughing thing. I thought
mhm,
that scene was weird.
mhm.
And I agree. I thought, I don't know what I've seen Helena Bonham Carter in. I'm sure I've seen her in something, but I thought, oh, I mean, I don't think I would have left Emma Thompson for her, but I get it.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think I think she's the right person for that role. I think she captures that character very well. I think Ben Kingsley's excellent in it. And Ben Kingsley
He's really good. Yeah,
he's
he's very, very
really
good.
good. He's my favorite part of it.
He is the best part of it, yes.
Yeah. And there's a scene with him, you mentioned this with where he goes to see Olivier, and I thought of it as a paternal scene.
You're right. Having seen it I had said when I was talking to Tom earlier, I said something when I watched that scene and I went, Are they trying because it was just not in the text at all. This is when I was like, oh gosh, what are they doing to this play? Because in the play there is no suggestion at all that there's anything romantic between Festi and Olivia. But when I watched that scene, I went, are they? Because she's so comfortable with him, and he's like lying on the couch, and she's like leaning up against him, and I'm like, are they trying to suggest that they're lovers? Like that's not there at all. And it was just like, this is weird. This is stupid. It made no sense. That was just that one scene. When you watch the rest of it, they do make it clear that, oh no, this was the fool that her father loved. And she's probably been around this guy since she was a child. And so she's comfortable with him. And that I got the impression that that was what was going on there. So I did initially have that suspicion that something really weird was going on, and I'm like, this is a stupid change, but I don't think that's what was going on.
Yes, I like that scene a lot. That is a really nice. They both seem to relax
Yeah.
so much in each other's presence in that scene. I think that works great. I loved Sir Andrew also. That actor
Which one is
played
he? The one with Sir Toby Belch?
Acucheek. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
He's
Acucheek. Yeah, yeah,
he's
yeah.
the
He's
other
good. Yeah.
guy who's trying to seduce
Yes.
Olivia. He's lovely, and he's been around for forever. You still see him in things.
Yeah, he's very good. I think he's very funny. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the two of them, him and Kingsley, were my favorite performances in this. I thought Sir
I
Toby
liked
Belch
Toby Belch. I
worked
like Toby
fine.
Belch.
I think
Yeah.
it worked. Yeah, I think he was good. I like Mariah a lot. And even Orsino was funny. His if music
His
be the food
opening,
of
the open,
love.
yeah, yeah, let play on. Yeah, I mean, he is funny. I guess it's like it doesn't have as much opportunities for humor per se as some of the other ones. So it's sort of the like, well, he didn't really mess it up, and he didn't sort of ham it up and sort of break the movie because of that. But I think the role doesn't have as many opportunities for humor as say Festi does or Toby Belch or these other kind of characters. They just don't have quite the same opportunities that they do. So
Mhm. Yeah, he doesn't have as much stage time or screen time as the other actors. What I liked about his performance is he knows where to dial it up with the melancholy, but he doesn't. Also knows when to inject a sort of honest assessment of things. When he's sitting there and talking to her, and she's talking about the kind of man her sister loved, right? When Olivia is saying this, and you know, and you say, well, that is a man much better than me, and you get this kind of moment of honest assessment. He doesn't play that up. He sort of evaluates himself and puts it forward in a sort of humble way, and it's interesting because one of the problems it's an interesting moment and it works really well for building the relationship because I'd say one of the problems that often happens with Shakespeare. It's not a problem that's what Shakespeare's writing, but it's a problem the characters are dealing with. Is that in Shakespeare, very often you have women who are much smarter than the men who they're romantically paired with. You think of Juliet, you could think of Beatrice, you could think of
almost
Rosalind.
always, it's
Yeah,
almost
yeah,
always.
yeah. Shakespeare's greatest wits, until you get to Hamlet or Falstaff, tend to be women. Those Hamlet and Falstaff, I think, are exceptions, but the rest of them are women. And so you kind of have this problem of when staging these plays as to why is this really smart, capable woman interested in this guy, right? Like if you're going to stage Romeo and Juliet, you have to figure out why she would die for this man, even though she sort of has to train him on how to do everything because he's kind of too much of a doofus to do it. And I think that that Orsino, it was clear why that works. And in part, uh, Viola is she's not quite Rosalind, she's not quite Juliet. She's a little calmer. She's a little more phlegmatic. She's a little calmer. She's also a little wackier too, right? Like what
She's
she
enjoying her
she's in
cross-dressing
yeah,
more. Yeah,
which is which is
enjoying it. Yeah.
fun. It's a little wacky. I mean, there's no they invent a reason in the movie, but there's no reason for her to do this in the play. They don't say
Not
anything.
really. No,
Yeah,
I
she
don't think
just
so. No, she
does
doesn't
it.
have to be in hiding. Yeah.
Yeah. In the movie, they have it that there's a war going on or recently finished.
Which never comes up again.
Yeah. Well, it comes
There's
up
no
with Sebastian.
Sebastian, but that's
Yeah, and
Sebastian actually
Antonio.
has it. Yeah, that actually comes in there. But like, there's no mention of that war other than Sebastian, other or Antonio. Yeah, there's no.
Antonio is lately, but so they inject this war in order to give her a justification for cross-dressing. The reason being she's from the evil, is it Ilium? Wherever she's from.
Illyria is where they are,
Illyria.
isn't it?
Yeah, so she's from Cornwall then.
Yeah, because in the She's the Man,
Mhm.
they go to Cornwall High, and the
Yeah,
other one
yeah.
is is
Illyria. I
Illyria
mixed up which
High.
one was which, but
Oh, I remembered.
oh, thank you.
Yeah, oh yeah. To be fair, I mostly remembered because of She's the Man. So
Yeah,
hey, we
yeah,
got
that's
something out
I
of
to
it.
be fair, maybe that's why I remember too. But yeah, so there's this idea that well, she's from this enemy country, so she needs to go into hiding. But there's no reason in the play. And so I think you're right. I think she's just having fun and, and enjoying herself in this way. So she's a little bit wacky, and he's a little bit wacky too, obviously. And she sort of has to guide him a little bit out of his kind of melancholy. And it works really nicely in this. I've not seen her in anything else, and apparently she kind of stopped acting soon after this play. The one who plays Olivia, but
She is good. I mean, she's
she's
she's pretty solid.
yeah, she's good. So I think that
The guy
relationship
plays
works really
Sebastian
well.
even is pretty funny. Like I did like when he just punches Sir the Ague in the face, whatever his name is.
Mm.
It actually does. I mean, that was a funny scene. Like that's just sort of that classic slapstick of watching that guy's face as he just gets decked is actually pretty funny.
Yeah, Richard Grant, that's his name. That who plays Sir Andrew.
What else is he in? Other thing, I don't know what
He's
else
been in
I've
a
seen. I'm sure I've seen him in
bunch of
something, but
things. He was in Bram Stoker's Dracula. He was in oh God, I'm trying to remember some other thing. You yeah,
I probably have to look it
we'll
up.
look
Yeah,
him
I'll look
up.
it up
Yeah, but
later. Yeah.
he's been around playing that character or kind of he often plays kind of like a gay best friend type thing, which suits him very well. So my problems with the film tend to be in the editing of it. And while I do think, it's Twelfth Night, right? So the play's title is, we talked a little bit about this, we should probably bring it forward, why it's called Twelfth Night. Twelfth Night is obviously the Epiphany, that's the 12 days after Christmas, but it took the place of the Saturnalia, which is a Roman holiday where you celebrated, you guessed it, Saturn, where people would sort of exchange roles. So servants would be masters, masters, servants, and it was very funny and silly. The Marxist critic Frederick Jameson used to say, like, this is just there to take gas out of the pipes so that the
Yeah.
system can
It's a
continue.
stress release, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And
It's sort of it's
it's
Carnival.
Carnival.
When
Yeah.
did we talked about Carnival for
Bakhtin.
one of
Yeah.
these? Yeah,
Yeah.
we talked about one of these for Carnival for one of the movies. I can't remember which one, but
Yeah. But Bakhtin talks about this as
yeah.
well. So, there's a whole thing about Twelfth Night and whatnot. And so, like, for that reason, that kind of festival spirit, this play is just nuts. Like it's kind of all over the place and whatnot. And so I can appreciate this movie moves. It does have that kind of energy. What ends up happening though for me is they tend to do that by cutting in the middle of one scene to another scene and then cutting back to that scene again so that you don't lose any time in setting something up and then waiting or whatnot. So it just seems like they have a bunch of pieces out there and they're able to grab whichever piece they like. And I found that kind of frustrating, not because I'm overly loyal to the text or anything like that, but there is something that happens when you interrupt the Shakespeare scene in the middle of it to jump to another Shakespeare scene and then jump back to the original Shakespeare scene. And
Like,
sometimes
where's an example of that? Because I can't remember one, but I'm
I
sure
can
if you're
think of
saying it happened to
so
you,
one
I can't
example
remember
is
one.
when they lock up Malvolio and they're
Oh yeah,
talking to
that
him.
sequence. By the time I was getting to that sequence, I was kind of ready for
Uh,
it to be. Yeah,
they did it a bunch of times, but it's a good illustration. When they first put him in there, he's knocking on the door of the shed and goes,
yeah.
"I'm not mad," and then they cut
Oh
to
yeah,
or
to
scene
Sebastian. It's Sebastian.
Sebastian, yeah,
Sebastian saying, "Am I mad?
yes,
I just saw
exactly.
it. Yeah, who is she? Yeah,
Yeah, so it gets this like, "Well, everybody's mad today on Twelfth Night," that type of thing, which is fine. That's kind of what's going on. But it's also you interrupted the middle of a scene to jump into another scene, to jump back into the other scene, to jump out of that scene again, to jump back into that scene. And there is
That's a
something.
very modern film technique. You know, it's not quite Family Guy, but it's a very modern technique to do that though.
I think so, but you
Godfather does it at the end. No one complains that we get to, we have to interrupt the baptism by seeing all the people get shot.
whoa, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. You don't have like a well constructed scene or
I'm
script
I'm
putting out there.
kidding. I'm
Okay,
kidding.
nobody says anything in that scene. They just so anyway, so that kind of frustrated me because I'd be waiting, the scene would start, would know the scene. They would maybe this is my own taste thing where I wanted to see the particular scene. Then they would cut to something else. And it seemed to be, in order to create a more frenetic pace, in order to create some kind of theme type connections there, like the thing with madness where everybody says madness, which, yeah, it is a theme of the play and the film. But that I found frustrating. And they seem to do it a lot to the point where occasionally felt kind of almost incoherent. Um, because characters kind of show up and you're not quite sure where they came from and whatnot. And the filmmaker sort of trusts that, well, you don't really care.
You don't really care.
They're all
I mean,
here,
Shakespeare does
which
that
is
a little bit too.
fine.
Shakespeare does that a little bit too, just where scenes just kind of, you can tell the way they were filmed was just like as one group entered, another one just walked on. And you were
Yeah.
like, okay, I guess the scene has changed. I especially enjoy it when he has a character walk out and then a bunch of people walk on and then the character immediately walks back out again. And you're like, oh, they're in a new place. Like you think that was clearly just the convention when you see that kind of thing. So the pacing tends to obviously be longer because you can't do kind of cutting of scenes, obviously. But there is a sense sometimes where Shakespeare was just like they'll figure it out.
Yeah.
These people have said they were inside. These people have said they were outside. The same character walked back out. He's now outside. We don't need anything more. We got it.
Yeah, and that's not really the main problem. The main problem for me was like scenes just kept getting interrupted. So we'd be watching a scene and would be interrupted and we'd jump to something else. And I don't know if it was a
But is
huge
it like, I
problem.
mean, was it your issue was like, I mean, when they do like the Malvolio when they're all getting drunk, is it
Mm.
because like they're cutting to Malvolio and Olivia in bed? Like, was that
No,
bothering
no,
you?
no. It
That kind of
wasn't
stuff or
that.
no?
It was that they would leave. It's not that they would within a scene cut to different views. I didn't care about that. I liked that. It
Okay.
was that you would cut to a new scenario with new actors, start a new scene from a new act, then cut back to.
Back to the original one.
Yeah. And I wouldn't before watching this I would never have thought anything of it. Be like, okay, that's a way of approaching this. What's the big deal? But it does, I think it for me anyway, interrupt the pleasure of seeing that scene transpire. It gets in the way of the scene. So you're watching a scene begin and then stop and then start again.
Yeah, I
And
see what you're saying.
it was slightly frustrating.
I didn't notice it, but now that you're mentioning it, I'm like, okay, I guess that did happen a lot. I guess it didn't bother me. I don't know the play as well. As I said, I've only read it once. And I've never seen a stage production or a film production of it, so maybe it just didn't bother me as much because I have no, I don't,
Nothing
I
vested.
remembered the
Okay.
scenes,
Hmm.
but I didn't really remember them that well,
Hmm.
and so I didn't bother me as much. But I would have to watch it again and see if it didn't bother me on a first watch through.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
But you're right. I would be curious to watch it again and see
Watch
if
again
it
and see
bothers me
how it
the next
is.
time,
Yeah.
or see
Maybe.
other productions of it, get an idea of what it's like when it's done straight through, and then go back to that and see what it's like. It's also I'd watch She's the Man first, so the ruined the whole plot for me.
All right. Should we do She's the Man? Should we transition into that masterpiece? Oh, She's the Man was the apogee and nadir of teen or early 2000s pop star Amanda Bynes, who, God bless her. I hope she's doing better. But so,
That is a bad movie. It's
yeah.
it's bad in the worst type of bad. It's not even bad in Troll 2 bad. It's bad in just not like nothing is funny. Nothing except for one thing. There's only one character in the entire thing that I did kind of laugh a couple times. But almost all of it. the only one, and maybe this was just for desperation. I don't even know what her name was. The one who was like when they show the carnival and they're going around and she's sitting there with the crystal ball and she's like, "I see cats drowning and hung by their entrails." Like she's talking to like a 6-year-old child, and she's
Okay.
the one who's the like, "I've never been on a date before." You know, like she just sort of has this quality, and I thought, oh, I kind of laughed at the cat thing. You know,
I
that
don't
was at
remember.
least
Maybe I missed that.
she's the one when
I was
they're like,
zooming
"Oh,
out
we
a
need
little
to
bit.
go on a double date," and they
Oh,
bring
that lady.
her.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Mhm.
And so she has a couple lines where I just thought, "Oh, she's kind of funny because she's at least not like it's not as if I sat there being like, "Oh, I know what the joke's gonna be. I already know it's gonna be. Oh yeah, it's totally a dick joke." Like you just so many of them. It was just you just I'm like I can see this joke coming 10 miles away because you showed me her putting tampons into her shoe. Clearly, they're going to fall out in front of the other people. I know it already because you broadcasted it to me beforehand. So nothing was funny. Like just nothing. It was so obvious what was going to happen. Even when they kind of tried to do this, the sort of Saved by the Bell. Oh no, I have two dates at once and I have to be the same person at the carnival. She changes like one time because she
It's
sees
fine.
one person and then nothing happens with it again. They couldn't even get that right. Like the most predictable of sitcom plots, they couldn't get. Nothing was funny.
Yeah, yeah, and it's also she is the male character a lot in it. She's mostly the
Yeah,
male
she's
character. She's
mostly the
mostly
male character, yeah.
and she does a voice like
Well, to
a
be fair, Viola is the male character in most of it
yeah. She's
too.
this is not a criticism of
Yeah.
that
But
per
to be fair,
se.
but Viola is also not the only thing you're focused on. There's lots of
No,
other things you're meant to focus on. But this was an Amanda Bynes star vehicle thing.
yeah,
So she just every scene is a Viola
she's
scene.
in it. Yeah, and she does. I mean, that's something to dive into too. What they cut, but she does this voice to be like a man that's I don't know, like a broy southerner. Like it almost
Hey,
sounds
hey
southern.
man, how are you? Yeah, she does
Hey,
this
baby.
southern thing.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I don't, are they supposed to be something, but nobody else is the other guy, Channing Tatum, whatever.
Channing Tatum?
Channing
Channing
Tatum?
Tatum.
Channing Tatum, yeah. Magic Mike. Is
Magic
he
Mike. See, I've never I literally watched it like, hey, it's Magic
Magic
Mike.
Mike? Yeah.
I was like,
Um,
oh man, he's
I thought of
young.
Foxcatcher. That's what I thought.
I don't
But
think I've ever seen him in anything else, but I only knew him from Magic Mike.
yeah, I knew him from
I've never
Foxcatcher.
seen them, but I've seen the movie. I've seen like the previews, and I know it was like a huge thing, and they did like a whole bunch of them. Wall Street Journal had a whole article about the phenom of Magic Mike. So
Yeah.
I'm familiar with Magic Mike, but I
Yeah.
don't know it. Yeah.
Yeah. But he had like a little bit of it too. This little like kind of
I don't
weird
know if
accent.
I don't
I
know if they
her
were like he might have been like, well, she's doing it. I guess
I
I
gotta do
kind of
it.
got to do
But
something.
it was the most her little man voice or whatnot was the most annoying. It was grating to the point of like like I stopped. I think I missed that ball scene, the prediction or whatever. The
Yeah,
I saw the
it's just it's the
Cassandrails.
scene when they're going to the it's when they're showing her going to to the carnival and they're showing like here's this thing and here's this thing and then they kind of show the camera like zooms over her head and there's this like horrified girl sitting there as she says that line and I thought, "Oh, that's funny." Like that's something I did not see happening. So I can laugh at it. It's just
Yeah,
nothing. The only other moment I laughed is when the dad says,
I laughed at
"Don't
that too.
don't most soccer games have less nudity?" When yeah, obvious but funny. Like even as he started to say it, I went, "Oh, I know what he's gonna say," but I still laughed. It was so bad. I watched it with my wife because my wife hasn't watched most of these, but she so the main reason we wanted to watch it, by the way, my brother John, he's the chaplain for a university hockey team, and he said that on the bus, on 5 nights out of 7, the movie they would put on, this is a few years ago, for one whole season was She's the Man. They just constantly had She's the Man on this bus, and the hockey team would watch it. So he had told us this. So my wife was like, I actually kind of want to see it. I want to see what this movie's like. At one point, we paused it, and we both had the exact same reaction. We went, "Oh my God, it's only been 45 minutes?" Like I went, I thought it had been like an hour, at least an hour and a half. And that's a bad movie when you're 45 minutes in thinking it's at least twice that much. And I was hoping it was closer to like 2 hours. I'm like, I guess they're getting because I didn't know the play, so I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know, I hadn't read the play. I knew nothing about it. So when I watched this, I'm going, I assume they're going to wrap this up soon. Like, oh my God, it's been 45 minutes. That was the like, all right, we're gonna take a break. We'll come back and
Yeah.
we're gonna get a beer. We're gonna come back. Like it is long.
It's about an hour and 45 minutes. And you would think with all of the plot that Twelfth Night has, which actually doesn't have that much plot, it has a lot of characters.
It has a lot of characters, has a lot of things. As you said,
Hmm.
it's zany. Like
It's
it's
zany.
how
It's
do you mess this? This is where I realize you can't taking Shakespeare plots. Although again, when we get to Taming of the Shrew and we do 10 Things I Hate About You, that's actually one that does it well. It's you can't just take the plot and plop it into the modern day and be like, instead of fighting wars, they're going to play soccer. You can't do that because you just you just lobotomized the play because you removed all the wit
because the
and
plot,
replaced it with Amanda Bynes pretending to have, like boob jokes and tampons.
hmm,
Like no, no, it
yeah,
doesn't work.
it gets to that same point. The point of Shakespeare isn't plot. He's not that
No.
good at plot. He doesn't seem that interested in it. He took plots from wherever he could find them. And
Reminds me of E.M. Forster says when apparently someone asked him about writing and they were asking about different elements of writing and they were like character and theme and then they said, "What about plot?" And he went, "Oh God. Yes, plot. There must be a plot." Like this was a man. I suppose there must be a plot or
hmm,
something like that.
yeah.
Plots are wildly overrated. And I say that as a man who loves noir and loves really intricate plots and find when intricate plots are fun, but otherwise a lot of the time plots are like, oh God, what are we supposed to do? Why is Holden Caulfield out here? Like, does anyone care? But apparently people thought we needed to. Like, those are the kind of things.
Yeah, and Shakespeare is in that vein. He doesn't, and when he invents plots, they're not like the Tempest. Not a lot happens. Most of the people just
No,
run
he
around.
it's
There's a shipwreck and people run around on an island.
it's essentially the part of Midsummer where he goes, "I will lead them round and round." It's essentially
Yes.
just that for
Yes.
5 acts.
Yeah. Um,
He took his one idea from one scene and went, Shakespeare got to get paid. We're going to turn this into a play.
yeah, but it's a lovely play because you
I
have these
love Tempest. It's my
really
favorite
great.
of the romances. I
Yeah.
love Tempest. It's a
Hmm.
great play,
Yeah.
but it's no plot.
There's not really much. I mean, there's more of a plot here. There's characters who are confused for one another. But the most fun I have with the film version of Twelfth Night, the Trevor Nunn version, is watching Festi
Festy.
and
Watching Festy.
Belch and Maria, just run around and have fun.
And even watching, I kind of just enjoyed watching Viola walk back and forth. Even that kind of made me laugh a little bit. And she's like, "Ugh." You have to walk back. I mean, it was funny. Just watching the whole sequence and some of the beauty of it, and just they play with the language. Watching their scene on the when they're overlooking like the cliffs, I quite enjoyed. There's a lot of just kind of that classic beauty, just beauty of language, beauty of just scene. I don't need the convoluted scenarios, and it's fine. And then She's the Man. Good Lord. It was just and it all really did was point out the absurdities of the plot because of course the plot's absurd. Is anybody really going to confuse them? Um, Actually, Trevor Nunn did a really good job with the opening of them on the boat playing when they're singing. That was clever because that really sets it. So in the opening, of the Trevor Nunn version. They're on a boat and they're singing, and it's Viola and Sebastian, and they're wearing like veils over their faces, and they're singing, and they're making the joke obviously that one of them's clearly a man and one of them is a woman, and one of them's the male one. His voice keeps breaking when he tries to be a woman, and so then finally that one takes the veil off and the other one takes the veil off, and that's the man. And you're like, oh, we thought the other one was the woman, and then the other one takes the veil off, and they're both the men. And you're like, oh, that's even So the idea being that, oh yes, even I was confused by that. So it's like, okay, you set it up actually fairly well that I could get confused on the gender of these individuals, but later on, I'm like. There is no way anybody for very, very long looked at Viola or
Cesario.
Cesario, not Cicero, yeah, Kikero, and thought that's a man. Like there's just, and you have to just suspend your disbelief because clearly it's not, but we're just going to suspend our disbelief. And even when they show Sebastian and Viola, they do a much better job of making them look similar, but there's not really that much of a doubt,
You just have to go with it,
You
and
just
once
go
you
with it.
do, you can have fun.
And you just let it go. But when in She's the Man, that's all you got. Like there's not, you're actually asking me to accept this scenario. That's the problem. You're doing it as a real scenario, not as a Brechtian convention. Um, you're asking me to accept it as a, I joke because Brecht is. Do we ever do a Brecht? We haven't done a Brecht. We should
We
do a Brecht.
have we seen a Brecht film?
I don't even know if I've ever seen a
We
Brechtian
could
film.
do. I mean, I've seen Three Penny
I love Three Penny. I think it's my
on
favorite.
film. We
I've
could do
seen a
Pennies
lot of
from
Three Pennies.
Heaven. Pennies from Heaven is sort of an adaptation of that kind of.
That'd be
Well,
fun. Maybe we should do it.
it's
Anyway,
not really.
so
Anyway, but
but Shakespeare is very Brechtian. It
Mhm.
invites you to celebrate the theater and just say, okay, I know they're clearly not, but I just accept that they are.
Yeah,
We're
and
going to
critics have
reject it.
said like, what? Why is Brecht a big deal? Shakespeare invented this
Yeah,
first.
Shakespeare
I've
did
actually
it
read that.
first. Yeah, and it's true. Shakespeare is very Brechtian. You just go and say, yeah, clearly it's not what you say it is. This is clear. This wooden O is not the Fields of Agincourt, but it's fine. I just say it is. And I move on, and that works for Shakespeare, and it works in the Trevor Nunn one. Like, yeah, it's there. You're kind of covering it up because it's film, but I just accept it. But She's the Man, it's all it has. It's so leaning heavily on it that I can't help but do the which I hate. I hate when people do this with movies, but I can't help but do the wait a minute, how did he fit in her clothes? He's clearly 6 inches taller than her, and yet apparently when he went to this soccer game, he was able to put on her uniform. That makes no sense. But it's all I got because you've anchored me so heavily in the plot that I can't help but find plot holes. And they're rampant. There's no way anybody ever would be confused by this. And if it's all I got, it's the only thing I can, only thing I
Yeah.
can focus on. So plot holes, lack of humor,
Mm.
just stupid voices. What
Yeah.
is going on with this movie?
Yeah, I can't believe what they cut. So you cut, I'm presuming nobody is Sir Toby, right? There's not a good candidate for it.
No, there's
The
no Sir
Mal
Toby. No, that's all gone. They have
that's
the
all gone.
Malvolio's the
It's like
spider.
there's literally a
So
tarantula named Malvolio who's Malvolio, and I guess the guy who has Malvolio is
is
supposed to
supposed to
be
be
Malvolio,
Malvolio.
but he doesn't do anything. He doesn't get
He is.
punished.
He also. Well, I mean, he kind of gets punished but it's like he goes after the. He goes with the other chick who's supposed to be in love with Sebastian, who doesn't exist. There's no parallel for her, right?
The
She
one
has
who's
no
in love,
parallel.
who's
The
in
one who's
love with.
supposed to be dating
Oh, yeah,
Sebastian.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
There's no parallel for her. They just
Yeah.
make
Oh,
her to make
the actual
conflict.
Sebastian, not the.
Yes, the real Sebastian.
Hmm.
So she's supposed to be in love with the real Sebastian and also in love with the Cesario. She has no parallel, right? Or I guess she's not in love. No, she just thinks that
She thinks
Cesar
Cesario is Sebastian.
she thinks that Amanda Bynes is Sebastian, so she's chasing him around. She has no parallel in the play. I think she's just there to make tension, and she partners up with Malvolio. I guess is she supposed to be like the the dude you liked. I can't remember his name.
Richard
The other.
Graham, Andrew Akuchik?
Yeah, is she supposed to be him?
Sir Andrew?
I guess no, because
Maybe.
she's not interested in.
She's not interested in Olivia.
Yeah, so no, that doesn't work. So she has no parallel, which is fine. They don't all have
Mm,
to. We
mm.
don't need one for ones, but she has no real purpose. And the Malvolio character doesn't serve the Olivia character. He has no bearing on her. He just
He
happens to
likes
kind of
her.
he likes her and kind of follows her around in that sort of high school way. But it would be one thing if you actually made him something, like she's the president of the school and he's the secretary. I don't know. I could write a better script. Like, okay, there we go. I've already got it. She's the president of the school, he's the secretary. Hey, now we actually have a reason for them to interact with one another, whereas otherwise they have no reason to interact with one another. So why is that here?
But
There's
nothing
just there,
happens because
but
of it,
nothing
right?
happens with him. It's just he accuses. It's just an excuse for Amanda Bynes to take her shirt off.
Yeah. He that's at the end, right? That's the only effect he
Yeah,
has is he
it's the only
says,
effect
"No,
he
she's a
has.
woman," and then it's immediately dispelled with.
Yeah, and it's an excuse for him, the other dude, to drop his pants, which was, again, okay, moderately funny, not really. And then Amanda Bynes to flash to take her shirt
Guy.
off. That was
Mm,
it. That's all it accomplished.
mm.
So,
Yeah. Why is he
but,
even there?
well, plot, I guess you could have cut that entire
You could have
element.
cut that entirely and they go like, "No, you're a man," and then like somebody else could have said that, right? Or like even
Yeah,
Channing Tatum could have said, "I don't believe you," and then she flashes it, right? Like it's not.
but I mean, I guess you could have taken the element, but again, this is what
It
10
doesn't
Things I Hate
matter. Yeah,
About You
this is
does
just
well. This is what
kind
10
of.
Things I Hate About You does well. It takes the elements of the plot, and it's not a direct one for one, but it takes the sort of, this is the spirit of an adaptation. This one kind of tries to do a semi one for one, almost as a like, hey, we'll get the Shakespeare nerds to come see it. Like this felt like it was made to be like the Shakespeare nerds will come because they can see Malvolio the spider, and we'll put him in the preview so people will think it's an adaptation. And then we'll show Amanda Bynes flash the camera, so we'll get the dudes. It just feels like it was made for like a preview to get enough people to come
It's
see
made
it.
for focus groups.
Yeah, doesn't it? Like it
Hmm.
just feels
Yeah.
like, okay, we got enough details from each element to make this a movie that people will fork out their, what did a movie ticket cost in 2006? 7? 6?
Yeah,
$12,
twelve
I'm gonna say. I'm
dollars.
gonna
Yeah,
say $12.
I
Yeah.
was.
So $12, we're gonna get them to fork out their $12. That's what it feels like. It's just so, and it's just wretchedly unfunny. That's what it pisses me off about it. I've seen, what we've watched some bad movies in our times. And bad movies are, poorly made movies. This is just bland. Bland, 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 bland. It's just unfunny joke after unfunny joke after obvious stupid reference with bad bad accents. I
Yeah,
hated this thing.
yeah. This was a rough one. I think there is.
It's close to my least favorite we've ever
Yeah,
done.
it's pretty bad.
Like, what have we done that's worse? I mean, even, we really hated Out of Africa,
We
but it's beautiful. It's
we
beautifully
really
shot.
hated Across the Universe, but Across the Universe is better made than this.
It's better made, and the
Yeah.
songs and I mean,
You have a
some
few
of the
good musical
musical numbers,
numbers
some of the musical numbers are lovely.
from
It's
Mr.
just a
Kite.
pretentious.
Yeah.
It's yeah. Some of it was oh yeah, that was really good. Some of it is, but some of it's oh that was really good. But some of it's just that was just kind of pretentious and sort of nostalgia drivel. But it was still had some interesting things in it. This is dull and stupid. Like I don't think we've done. I can't think of anything that was worse.
Yeah. Huh. That's yeah.
I'm sure there
Out of
was.
Africa and Across the Universe are not as bad as this.
No
Those are filmmakers who know how to make a film.
film.
I think what it was they had this actress who was a Disney or a Nickelodeon princess. I don't think she was Disney. I think she was Nickelodeon.
Don't know. Didn't have cable as a child. Poor child.
I had it as a very little child, and then they cut it. And they didn't tell us, so we kept turning it on and trying to figure out what was wrong.
That's, that's the most latchkey thing I've ever heard.
But yeah. So, but I think she was at Nickelodeon, and I think what they were trying to do is just make a star vehicle for
Yeah,
this woman,
that's what it was.
and
Yeah.
it fell in her face because she doesn't really have apparently very much talent or what have you.
I don't know if I've seen her in anything else. Probably seen her in something. Does she do anything else? She must have done some movies.
I don't
No?
know.
No idea.
I don't. Yeah, I don't. I didn't see her Nickelodeon show either. But yeah, I think, and to your point, it's the plot isn't interesting in Shakespeare, and they leave out the best
Best
characters.
part, yeah.
They leave out, and maybe it's they just couldn't. They didn't have the skill to make a Sir Toby, or I guess Festi was kind of the gay guy, maybe, but
Oh gosh, I didn't get that.
I that doesn't really work.
He's the captain. He's the captain of the ship that gives her
Oh,
the clothes. That's the only thing,
yeah, but
right?
he gives her advice later on. That's the
Yeah.
only thing, because
You're right,
like
there's no Festi. I didn't even notice
yeah,
that. There is no
there's
Festi.
no Festi, there's no
There's no
Sir
Festi. There's
Toby.
no Sir Toby.
And the stuff with Malvolio is it doesn't. It's not that it isn't funny, but it's also not consequential because we don't spend enough time. This is another thing. We don't spend enough time with Olivia. Olivia is really a lot
Literally,
of
as you say this, can't even picture her face. Like
yeah.
I
She
watched it maybe 2 weeks ago. Can't picture her face. That's bad. That's a bad film.
yeah. She's the center kind of the play in a lot of ways. Everybody wants her, except Viola for obvious gender reasons. But like Olivia's sort of the center of things. And even though it's Viola's story, really, I feel like Olivia is the
Yeah,
character.
she's the thing around which the plot centers.
Yeah.
But
And even as a personality, she's, we
so
see
maybe this is part of
her.
the problem. Like the plot, if you're going to do a plot, the plot centers around Olivia, but the character center of the play is clearly Viola. This thing doesn't have the cleverness to make a character center play, so they made a plot centric play around the wrong character.
That might be it. Yeah.
Is that the?
That
I
might
think
be the
there's many
problem.
problems, but that's a fundamental problem. You made a plot centric play around the wrong person.
Yeah. And then if you could fix it if you had more of an Olivia, like a really strong Olivia. So you actually had yeah, Viola,
Is she
Amanda
blonde? Is she a
Bynes.
blonde? Is
She's
she red? I don't. I
blonde,
literally
yeah.
cannot remember what she looked like. She's blonde.
She's
Okay.
blonde, and I think I've seen her in something else, but now I don't know. I did not look her up. I'm sorry, audience. I
I
didn't do
try
my
as little
due.
as possible to look up the things, so I try as little as possible.
Well, I try to look
So
up who the actors are and their connections and whatnot. I couldn't even bother to look up the date for this
yeah, I
movie.
try.
So
I try.
angry I was.
Sometimes I do. Sometimes I do look them up, but I try as little as possible to look them up as to who they are. Like I looked up the dude from Richard, who the Welsh actor, who I was like, oh, he's
Oh,
actually
Dominic
Welsh.
West. Yeah.
Yeah, because when he was doing his accent, I remember thinking like, that's a pretty good Welsh accent. Like that's not an easy accent to do it. So I looked him up and was like, oh, he actually is Welsh. That would explain that. That's why he does a good Welsh accent. So sometimes I will look them up, but usually it's only if I'm like, what? How old are you? Like, something like that. But so I
Yeah.
try as little as possible. So yeah, I have no idea who she was or what else she was in. Anyway.
Yeah. But I think if you could do that, then once you have a lot of attention paid on her, and once you sort of balance the plot out a little more with Viola and a lot more Olivia in it, then you can have a Malvolio thing, right? Because then you understand a little bit more of Malvolio and that society that runs
Yeah.
with this woman or lives.
That's why she should have been the president of the school and he should have been the secretary. Not even the vice president. He should have been the secretary.
And
And then,
you could have Sir Toby is like a guy who just graduated. So he's like he recently graduated high school, but he's kind of a pothead, and he's partying with this other guy who recently graduated who wants to date her, and whatever. And then
you
you
could
could
even make
have
him the
that
Matthew
thing.
McConaughey, the like, I love dating high school chicks. Like you could make him that and it would have been like, oh, that's funny. You got that one right.
Yeah, and you could balance it out, but you would
Yeah.
need to. But I think that maybe the problem with it is it's even though it's a great play for Viola, it's not a star vehicle for the person playing Viola in the way Hamlet's a star vehicle for
Yeah.
the person playing Hamlet. It's
If you want
there's
a
just
star vehicle play, you got to do as you like it. That's a
Yeah.
star vehicle for the female
Hmm.
role.
Yeah.
That's a star vehicle for a female character.
Yeah. Yeah. That is. This
She is the center
isn't.
of that. She is the actual center of that plot. Everything
Everything
goes
revolves around
around
her.
goes around Rosalind.
And that's still, you still have great characters outside of her, but yeah, that's the center. With this, you can't give it all to Viola because you just lose a lot of the humor. You need that association to understand Malvolio. You need that as, that he's who these people are these epicures, and who he is a sort of faux Puritan. And if you don't have that society built up, which you need Olivia to build, then all of that falls flat. And so you have Malvolio, some guy. At first, I thought he was a faculty member in this who has a spider. The
I kind of
Malvolio.
thought that too. Yeah,
I
I
thought
kind
he
of
was a.
thought that too. I didn't understand what he was.
Yeah, I
No,
couldn't.
even the fact that it was a boarding school was confusing to me in the first few. Like, I'm like, oh, it's a boarding
I
school.
think her school isn't, but the boys' school
Apparently,
is.
yeah, apparently that seems to be the case.
Yeah, and also, how did she pay for to be boarded? No,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
she's
because
her
the brother was
brother.
supposed to go
The
there.
brother,
She was
that's right.
supposed
The
to be her
brothers,
brother.
yeah,
Yeah,
she's
yeah,
taking over
yeah,
her
yeah.
brother's position.
She's
Um,
sneaking into the kingdom of Illyria to,
yeah,
she's
yeah,
to play soccer.
yeah, yeah. I thought he was off to college at first when I was first watching it. I didn't realize he was like
I didn't. I
I thought
got
Illyria was a college. I didn't realize it was a high school. That took a
I
moment.
got, and this is why I did. I because 10 things I do we do 10 things I hate about you next week?
I think so. I think we're doing Taming next week,
Yeah.
and then I think we're
So
doing As You
when we
Like
talk
It.
about that one, then the because I don't know. Do you like 10 things I hate about you, or do you
Yeah,
just
I
like it?
enjoy it.
Okay, I really like it. I think we just discuss how that one works and this one doesn't. Like what and this one feels like it was trying to just ape the same thing of like we're gonna do the same thing they did. Instead of Petruchio, we're gonna have Patrick, and instead of, we're just gonna do the same sort of thing, but just with Amanda Bynes instead of Julia Stiles. And that felt like what they were trying to do. And Lord, it falls flat on its face. And why does this one fall flat on its face, but 10 Things I Hate About You works?
I think
I
it's
think
the
that's a discussion.
yeah.
Save it,
Oh, we'll
man.
save it.
We gotta
Okay.
get the people to come next week.
We do, we do. Should we rewatch She's the Man to be prepped and ready
There
for
is
that
no
discussion?
way I will ever watch that again.
Yeah.
The
Uh,
only discussion I would be curious is, have we done a worse movie
then
than that?
She's the Man.
Have we done a worse movie than She's the Man?
We had some stinkers in the first season. I feel like we improved from the first season.
We did have some stinkers, but I don't think anything was this bad.
Yeah.
I mean, Mario is is a worse movie, but it was fascinating to watch that thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a train wreck, but I saw what they were trying to do. They were trying to do sort of steampunk retros of classic things before it was a thing. And I watched it with interest because it was like watching a clown slip over his own pies. Like it was sort of like, this is kind of funny in how bad it is, but I'm at least seeing what they were trying to do. This thing, I see what they were trying to do, and they accomplished what they were trying to do. And what they were trying to do was so stupid and banal that I hate it. So I can't even put Super Mario Brothers. That was probably the worst, actually objectively worst movie,
Yeah.
and this is lower because
This
this is
is lower.
insulting.
Yeah. I think I enjoyed Across the Universe less than I enjoyed Super Mario Brothers, to be fair, even though Super Mario Brothers is
I like some of the musical numbers in
yeah, I really struggle
Across
with
the
that
Universe or
movie.
whatever it was.
But
I mean,
this is
it's really bad. I don't
this
want to
movie.
put
It's
this
just
like
I think
epic.
it's just Amanda Bynes is really bad in this. She's just she puts on this male character that is annoying and hard to watch, and she's in almost every frame. And so I think that's for me the thing. It's just there's no relief from this irritating
The
woman.
scene when she's in the restaurant supposed to be like trying to show off or whatever that
Oh
was.
yeah, yeah,
That was pretty rough.
yeah. That was a yeah.
That was bad.
That was a very hard scene to get through. Um,
I'm just skimming through some of the other movies. I'm actually opening up the internet now and I'm skimming through some of the movies. I don't think there's anything that was worse. Mrs. Miniver was a little bland, but it wasn't bad. I can't find anything that I think was worse. The only equivalence would probably be um, Across the Universe. It's the closest one
Yeah. Well,
in sort of its pandering blandness. I guess it's just like it's this was trying to pander to my own millennial generation, and Across the Universe was trying to pander to boomers. And I guess I'm a little more sympathetic to boomers looking back on classic Beatles songs and their
then
and than to whatever pandering BS that was trying to be it was trying to
looking
be
back
created.
on the golden age of
Yeah, I mean, there's a sense.
Nickelodeon
Yeah,
children's
whatever
shows.
this thing was, this 6-year-old empire that they thought they could build around this woman, as opposed to the 60-year-old, real stable thing that you could
Something that's
build on,
been
like the
tried and true.
Beatles.
Mm,
And yeah, they wrecked it, and again, it's nannery. It's bad. It's there's nothing that should be pandered to of that particular of the Beatles sort of thing. It doesn't work, but at least there's some really good songs. There was some really fascinating dance numbers. There was some intriguing stuff. It angered, I guess I would put it this way. It angered me more because I didn't like a lot of the things they did with it, but I liked certain parts of it. This one just it wasn't anger, it was just like irritation. It's like a splinter rather than a bad argument. Like a bad,
yeah.
Across the Universe was a bad argument. This was like a splinter in every toe. Like,
Yeah.
there's
Just
a
a paper
different.
cut. Yeah.
Yeah, it
Mm,
was a paper cut in between every toe and finger. I
mm.
can't use any digits, and every time I do, it's very frustrating.
Yeah.
And that's what She's the Man was.
Mm,
Across the Universe was just, yeah, it's why would you glorify some of this? Like, at least
mm,
really admit it, what
mm,
really was going on there. And but some of it's, it had some interesting stuff.
mm.
I think this is the worst. I'm gonna label She's the Man. It's the
Yeah.
worst. And I don't know
That's
if we could really go far back and try to go into the movies from
the first
Talking
show.
Pictures trivia,
Talking
but
about
I
trivia is
think this is the worst. She's the Man is the worst movie we have done in all of our seasons.
yeah, it's up there. I'm trying to think of Talking Pictures trivia of like the one. There's a few of them that really
I might
I
not have seen
found
them. Yeah,
really
I might not have
intensely
seen them. So
irritating. But people love like Parasite. I
I didn't
cannot
see it.
stand
I
that
didn't see
movie,
it.
but
I thought a
people
lot of
love
people
it.
love that.
People
I've heard people
love it.
love that.
They love it.
Never seen it.
I feel bad. KJ, I know you liked the movie. We're sorry. Or I'm sorry for
I've
disliking
heard
it,
really
but
good things about it. Now I
I
need to see it so I can
yeah.
like try to defend it
Yeah. Well, go for it.
or trash it. I just
Or
yeah.
struggled with that movie. But yes, anyway. So our conclusion, read this play, and if you have a chance, please see Amanda Bynes' She's the Man. You will enjoy every minute of it. If you enjoyed Twelfth Night, check out Orson Welles' production from 1933, starring Welles' alma mater classmates from the Todd School for the Boys. You could see Jan Fried, who directed a Soviet version in 1955. There's a 1986
Why
version.
didn't we do these?
I
Why didn't we... These sound great.
Yeah, I think the Orson Welles one, he directed it when he was 17. I think there's like 9 minutes. I think it was just a
Fine. I mean, I get that, but
yeah.
why did we do the Soviet one?
I just found out about it today. That would be a lot of fun. It's from 1955.
Maybe one of our episodes of these needs to be a retrospective of like better movies.
We could do it 12th night, correct? We could do it second week at 12th night. There's nothing stopping us.
Not now. We'll do it later. Let's finish these ones and then we'll see. But there's got to be better 12th nights. Sorry,
Than
go.
this. Yeah, that's fine. There's also a 1986 version starring Peter Cummings and the Dil Boli Hadipa, which is a Hindi language version from 2009. You can rate and review this show anywhere fine podcasts are available. For those viewing in YouTube land, if you haven't already, please like this video, Subscribe to the Talking Studios channel for all our exciting content, and follow us on social media at Talking Studios. Check out other shows by Talking Studios, including Talking Pictures Trivia, where we explore movies through trivia, Keep Making Movies, where we explore micro-budget films, Limited Lexicon, where we play through text-based adventure games, and Get the Point, where we slowly reveal a movie poster and try to guess which movie poster it is. Got a question for us? Call the Talking Studios hotline at 201-467-8679 and leave a message. It may be featured on a future episode. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to Adapted, wherever fine podcasts are found. Join us next time when we discuss The Taming of the Shrew, the play, the Richard Burton Elizabeth Taylor adaptation, as well as 10 Things I Hate About You.
Wow, Talking Studios.
Next week, we'll be discussing Taming of the Shrew. Pat, if you could play one role in Taming of the Shrew, what would it be?
I actually, this is one of the cases where I'm taking. I mean, I know I did this with Falstaff, where I said I would like to be that role, but I don't think I could be. I think I could be Petruchio. I think I could actually do that one because he's not particularly witty, He's just loud and very. I think I could. He's very shouty and loud, and he's very blunt about how I think I could be a good Petruchio. So that's what I would go with.
Yeah, I think I would be a good Petruchio also,
Yeah.
actually. Yeah, he's like especially how Burton plays him, he's like a big a-hole. I think
I actually
think
really
he
liked Burton's.
Mhm.
I actually really liked. He kind of showed me a little bit more of that character than I had really appreciated before. I enjoyed it. I
Yeah,
also liked how they made him an alcoholic. I thought that just made sense.
Mhm.
Just made
Yeah.
sense, especially for Burton. But
Yeah, some of the decisions were, well, we'll get into it next week, but regardless, yeah, I think, yeah, both of us would be very different Petruchios, though.
I should throw out, I was a character in this, sort of.
Oh, who are
I
you? Oh,
I was
right, you were in
Lucentio.
Kiss Me
I was
Kate.
in Kiss Me Kate,
Yes,
and I played Lucentio.
the famous musical adaptation
Yes.
of this. Yeah,
We
I think
thank God did not do Kiss Me Kate, the musical movie. I'm sure there's a movie of it.
it's probably, yeah, I'll recommend it at the end if people want to see Kiss Me Kate, but oh, yes, I remember.
Don't want to see. They don't want to see
Kiss
Kiss
me,
Me Kate.
da, 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 da,
Yeah,
da.
I just
Yeah.
meant that. Where is the life that late island?
Oh, yes.
Or the I've come to wife it wealthily in Padua.
Stay tuned next week when Pat sings the entire album of Kiss Me Kate.